All right, in just a moment, I'm gonna play our tech guide video for tonight. If you've seen it already, bear with us, we will show it again. And in that video, I tell you to toggle your chat to be to all panelists and attendees. I'm saying it now, so that way everyone knows we want everybody chatting with everybody. All right, so this video is about to play, and then we're getting right into the opening credits and to the host of our show, Rona. So here we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And this is your tech guide for the interactive segments of Loving Frederick. First, we want to encourage you to chat with each other during the performance. You'll want to make sure that you're able to chat with everybody. In order to do that, toggle your chat to be to all panelists and attendees. That way, when you say, "I love Frederick," everyone can see you say that. All panelists and attendees. We will have a brief Q&A session at the end of each interview segment. In order to participate, click on Q&A and type your question. You can send it anonymously by toggling on Send Anonymously, or let us know who it is that's asking. You see, I just asked a question. What would be a good question? Yeah, I think I want to send that one anonymously. During our trivia segment tonight, Frederick, fact or fiction, we're going to actually launch a poll so that way the audience can vote. It'll pop up like this. You can talk to each other in the chat to try and give each other some clues. Which story is it going to be? I'm not giving you the answer. It's going to be different every night. Click submit. Otherwise, it doesn't count. They're all going to be anonymous, so don't be shy, and we'll see if the audience as a group knows their Frederick facts. And that should wrap up our interactive portions of our broadcast this evening. If you have any technical help questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A section.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us for week number 2 of our collaborative production Zoom called Loving Frederick. I'm Rona Mensa. I'm an ensemble member. I'm also a Board of Trustee member and a proud Frederictonian for many, many years now. So each week we're going to come to you live on Zoom. And what we're going to do is we're going to have lots of guests from the Frederick community. And during each installment, we're highlighting some of Frederick's not only history, but the culture, the people, and so much more of the town that we all love so much. So as Stephen explained, use the chat feature to join in the discussion. And later in the program, we're going to be doing a Q&A and also a trivia section. So I hope you brushed up on your Frederick trivia because it's going to be a lot of fun. Tonight in our Key Cities, Key Communities segment, we'll be speaking with Ivan and Rosanna Diaz and their community members who tell us exactly what they love about Frederick and how they actually got here. It's a really great story. And in addition to that, we'll chat with Ken Oldham. He's the president and CEO of United Way of Frederick County. And of course, like I said, we're going to rack your brain with some of that trivia. So dust out the cobwebs and get ready. It's going to be great. We've got Jeremy, who'll be speaking with Rhino Prohaska and Allison Duvall about Frederick's early settlements. And we'll wrap up the show with a music video from FCPS Academy of Fine Arts students. Now, before we begin, we will recognize the Frederick County sits on the unceded land of the Piscataway people. We ask that you join us in acknowledging the Piscataway community and their elders past, present, and future. Now, first on tonight's program is Key City Communities. It's where we delve in and learn a little bit about Frederick. And I've got some great guests. Tonight, I'm speaking with community members, Ivan and Rosana Diaz. Hello. How are you guys? All right, we're going to get you to unmute and we're good to go. There you go.
Hello, hello.
It is wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for joining on the show tonight.
Thank you, Rona.
Okay, so go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, hello, everybody.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. Tell me a little bit about your background. How did you tell me where you're from, what you were doing there? Tell me a little bit about your family, and then we're going to get into Frederick.
Well, we say the ladies first.
Okay.
Thank you. We are from Venezuela. My husband, me, and we Samuel. He have 15-year-old, and I have twin Amanda and Angelina. She have living
They were born here.
Okay. So some of your family was born here, and you are born in Venezuela. So how did you end up in Frederick?
Yeah, we coming because of my family-in-law. They live here for 20 years. Yeah, exactly in Hemisphere. In one opportunity in 2008 when we coming, and we saw Frederick, we saw the opportunity that the Frederick city for the strategic hub, 1 hour from Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, Baltimore. The another topic in Frederick is the people. The people, the city have it identified. So you can visit different. So we visit Florida, New York, whatever. But Frederick in specific is a city that have like a role of a drama, theater, drama, films. It's just have a characteristics. The people is different. This is the reason we choose Frederick to live here. Our twins, Amanda and Angelina, they were born here in Frederick, Maryland in 2013. They are 7 years old. This is the reason that this city is special for us. This is the reason we dance in the city. This is the reason right now we are creating a entertainment company that the name is Risa Events. Work with events, marketing projects, and consulting, because my wife, she is a psychologist and an actor, journalist. We choose Frederick to make a bilingual project, in Spanish and English, for the future, because we saw future in this city.
And you see a future in Frederick, and I think Frederick sees a future in you because you're bringing new skills and you're bringing communities together. It's really wonderful that you're working with a Spanish-speaking community and bringing them together. For instance, Ivan, you were part of a production here in our family theater, the Fun Company. You were in, and I'm going to ask you to say the title because my accent isn't very good, but tell us about how you came to work with the show here at the Met.
Yeah, I remember a friend, Daniel Valentin, he invited me to participate in El Viaje de Beatriz. Is an amazing show. He always, all the people in the Maryland Ensemble Theater open the door not only for Ivan, Rosanna, for all people, because it's just an amazing team that's work every day working. Imagine that. The El Viaje de Beatriz was an amazing experience because I never worked for kids. Always I work for teenager and adult people. I love because the people recognize me in the street. The king.
You were the king.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. This is one role that I make. We make a difference. But one was the king. The people enjoy. We enjoyed, how you can create a performance for the kid, because the kids are very fast in the moment that are you working. It was interesting history. A professional staff. It's a great job and a great experience that always I remember. I hope that in the future we can repeat.
I do too. I do too. I think that was a wonderful performance. And I was in the audience once and got to see a lot of new faces. You know, I'm around Matt a lot, but it was really great to see new faces and people being like, this is great. There's a Spanish speaking show that I can understand. Rosana, have you done any acting yourself?
Yes. For me, the art, the theater is specific for the psychology, for
Psychology.
for the therapy. Is for me for the work in the therapy. You know this process for the person, los personajes.
Yeah, the character.
For the character, the person is specifics for the therapies.
Yeah, so her job is always he tried to adapt, for the psychology area, because in the psychology you can find the psychodrama. She worked with that. She used she implement the theater, the drama, the acting, how you can motivate somebody in any moment for the people can stay. This is the reason that when we work together from Venezuela with a project that the name is A La Palestra. It's a company that we have with teenagers that have a lot of problems. And Rosana make a great job,
I see. So you worked with teenagers in Venezuela who might have had some psychological problems, and you used theater to counsel them, therapy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like artistic therapy. Do your kids also, are they involved in the arts?
Yeah, the daughter. The son right now, when he was kid, we tried, to motivate. Always we invited for the theater, for the puppet performer. But right now, it's like a normal teenager that is interested more in technology, But Amanda and Angelina, they love acting. They love performance. They love
music and painter and everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm totally about that. Anybody that's into the arts, I'm all for it. And I'm sure if you've got a teenager on your hands, you know a little bit about what's going on there. Definitely. Yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing with Centro Hispano, Rosana.
Yeah. For now, I work in the Centro Hispano for specific for the project. Entre Mujeres
between women.
Yeah.
It's a program that they have there.
And for the simio, for the
right now they are making a project with senior people.
With seniors.
Yeah, they support with a seminary, the diversity activity for culture and recreation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right now, she is the person that works with this project. It's an interesting job. A lot of people will go. Soon we're going to make a drama and dinner with these senior people.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Drama everywhere. That's what I'm saying. No, theater everywhere. I don't mean drama like drama, but you know what I mean. Well, I see Steven up on the screen, which means I think it's about time for us to start to get some questions from the chat. Is that right?
There is time to get questions from the chat. And I'm already excited. I want to be on stage with you, Yvonne. I want to be on stage with you. I'm inspired right now. This is an anonymous question. Where is the best Venezuelan food in the area?
Ooh.
Here, right now, we have one arepa queen. Arepa is like one popular taco. We recommend it. Very professional. Very clean, very healthy. You can check the arepa queen. We need to support all the local economic company. It's important,
Absolutely.
Arepa queen is hardworking people, honest people. They are in different area. We recommend the best arepa queen.
You know what? I'll tell you, you can't miss the truck either, because the truck is brightly painted. And every time I've seen the truck, there's a line of people. So that speaks very highly to how good the food must be. Definitely.
I've got to try it. Another question. Theater therapy sounds cool. Are you doing any of that here in Frederick as well?
Yeah, right now we are planning because coming a lot of video. Right now, so for May, we invited people that they can speak Spanish and English for a casting, because we're going to make a video humor video, comedy for Instagram, very short. If we are going to make a little workshop to capacity the people that they don't know, not necessary that the people can be professional. No, people that they want to participate, because the acting, the most important is that the people enjoy, the people be
Right.
happy. It's like we go to the Maryland Summer Theater, we enjoy, because all público. This is the reason that we are invited for May. For our social media, we're going to invite the people. But right now, we are prepared the project.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
And then there's just one last question. Have you done anything with local schools?
Yeah. I participate like 5 years ago in Vida Charter School in Pennsylvania. But right now, we were volunteer. Yeah, in Monocacy Elementary School here, Frederick. If we make one workshop, it's interesting how we can see a lot of kids. They can sing, they can acting, they can very creative. I think that Frederick have future. A lot of kids, a lot of teenagers that they sing them their record video. This is the word that we can do in English and Spanish or whatever the language. Because I remember one thing, Marcel Marceau, the very famous mime. We worked together in one opportunity. He said me, "Hey, remember that the theater is the universal language, because it's the language for the feeling, for the emotion, for the love, for the peace. It always, like at the church, you have to bring, the theater for all, wherever, is important. If you don't want the violences, bring theater, bring art, bring culture, bring education. This is the way. We don't have another option, Imagine that in this moment with the pandemic, imagine that this is amazing that we can create a new experience for the people that are in home. The people, are worried, but always the theater is expression of freedom.
It's very necessary for the school.
Yeah.
The school.
Yeah.
I agree. I think what you said is, art is universal and theater is universal because it speaks to the human condition across the board. Language it can be done without language, honestly. So I think that's really wonderful. And I'm looking forward to some of the projects that you have coming up. I know that we got a chance to talk a little bit before we did the show, and there are a lot of really exciting things that you've got up your sleeve and you're looking forward to creating. So Ivan and Rosana Diaz, I just thank you so much for being with us. Do you have any information you want to leave with our viewers about how they can contact you or find out more about you?
Whatever what you do, loving Frederick, loving the people, this is the most important, and support the myth, all people that make theater. This is the most important. You can follow, you can any question about you can visit our social media, Instagram at Risa Events. Very simple. If you have any question, if you want to make a drama acting in Spanish, are you welcome? And thank you for this invitation. Okay.
Wonderful. And we will have that information in the chat so that people can check it out. Thank you once again, both of you, so much for taking some time. And we love that you love Frederick and you're part of the Met family now. Thank you so much, Ivan and Rosana Diaz.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. All right. So now that we've gotten to know somebody, we now are going to learn about what some people love about Frederick.
Hi, I'm Wilson Seltzer, and I'm with the Maryland Ensemble Theater, and today we will be talking with people of the Frederick community and asking them what they love about Frederick. What do you love about Frederick? You got yummy ice cream?
Yeah.
Here? The creek?
Yeah.
What do you love about it?
The birds. The ducks.
The ducks? Oh, I love the ducks too. They're really cool.
I love visiting Frederick because I love downtown Frederick and going to the theater and also getting pretzels and pretzel sandwiches and pretzel pizza.
Hi there, my name is Megan, and one of my favorite things that I love about Frederick is going downtown during Christmas time. You can see the streets all lit up with the Christmas lights, the Christmas decorations, and all the shops, especially the display windows. Down in Carroll Creek, we have the ships all lit up, and of course going to the Met to see their Christmas show or be a part of it, whichever. Either way, it's wonderful to be downtown during Christmas time.
I love Frederick because it's a beautiful community, and all of my friends are here, and we can walk together and hang out together.
Awesome. Are there any events or places that you like to go?
Yeah, I like the live at 5, the concerts in the park on Sunday. Oh, this is great. This is first Saturday.
I love Frederick. I love the mountains and how close we are to just really cool experiences outside.
Frederick's downtown is great. The food down there is amazing. There's so many good restaurants and breweries, and it's so cool.
I love Frederick because there's a little bit of everything, no matter what you're into, whether it's comic books, trivia at the bar, or Dungeons and Dragons themed improv.
What do you love about Frederick?
I love the family orientation. It's just so, you can do so much with families. This weekend's the first Saturday. You know, you can bring your kids down.
I like the fact that there's so much to do within Frederick, but you drive 5 minutes outside of the city limits and it's like country area around here still.
And welcome back. We've got another guest for our Key City Community segment. Tonight, we have Ken Oldham. He's the president and CEO of United Way of Frederick County. Thanks for joining us, Ken. How are you?
I'm delighted to be here. I'm doing great. Thank you, Rona.
So glad to have you. Now, we've all heard of United Way, of course, but maybe people don't know exactly what the mission of the United Way is. So let's start just basically and have you explain that.
Sure. So the mission of United Way of Frederick County is pretty simple. We fight for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in our community. And that what we really focus on. We say every person, but we really focus on those who are underserved communities in Frederick County. And we define that very specifically. We defined our underserved communities as ALICE communities. They are asset limited, income constrained, but employed. These are working families who are unable to afford a basic cost of living in our community.
Wow. Well, you know what? I just started to learn a little bit about ALICE families and the ALICE report that kind of brings all this information together that gives you a picture of who is an ALICE family. So delve into that just a little bit more so that people understand what that means.
Sure. So the ALICE report comes out every other year. We engage United Ways of New Jersey and United Ways of New Jersey and researchers out of Rutgers University. And they develop a report on working families that is hyper local down to the county level. So we are able to, from that report, we are able to say exactly how many ALICE families we have in our community. And we can say that 37% of households in Frederick County are unable to afford a basic cost of living.
Wow.
And it's, this is important stuff to know. And we can break it down to very specific demographics and geographical locations. So we know that most of our ALICE households live either in far rural regions in Emmitsburg and Brunswick, but also concentrated heavily in the city of Frederick.
Wow. Well, I mean, everyone has been impacted by the pandemic. It shows here that the ALICE report came out it came out during the pandemic. So was this information from before the pandemic? Was all the information gathered before that time?
Yeah, so we release it every other year. It happened to be that this particular report was released last fall. And all of that data. So the data comes from commonly available but difficult to interpret federal data. And all of that is from 2018. So this is pre-pandemic. But let me say this, and this is a big but. It is the critical baseline on which we are going to measure the impact moving forward of COVID-19 on our working households in Frederick County. So our next report will be released in 2022, and that will incorporate ALICE data. But we are finalizing now a scientific survey of ALICE households in Frederick County, and we'll be releasing some information, intermediary information, to tie us over to that major report in the fall of 2022.
So now, how do you use the information in the report to support families throughout the county?
Oh, sure. So there's how we use it internally, and then how the community uses it. So how we use it internally, it guides our mission. We don't do anything without looking at the ALICE report and saying, is this positively affecting those who are unable to afford a basic cost of living? So we look at our demographic information, racial and cultural information, family type and size information, geographic location, you name it. We don't touch anything in the community unless it is directly serving ALICE households. A great example is our recently passed Unity campaign that actually started many years ago before the ALICE report came around. And when we developed the ALICE report, we say in order for an organization, so 31 organizations participated in the Unity campaign this year. We raised over $600,000 to support those organizations. Wow. Those organizations had to support ALICE households in order to be eligible to support eligible for the campaign. And then there's how the community at large uses the report, and they use it a ton. So our nonprofit community uses it a lot. We have many nonprofits who find it to be a better proxy for use for their programs, qualification criteria for their programs. Our governments, our city and county governments are using the ALICE report a lot to guide their activities and the concentrations of their efforts. And we are now seeing corporations and businesses in our company adjusting wages to reflect new information about the cost of living. And I can tell you that the basic cost of living for a single individual in Frederick County is $47,000. The basic cost of living for a family of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids is $105,000 a year. That is substantial. And we have seen companies beginning to say, okay, we need to start looking at wages.
Wow. And it's all based on this report as seeing it and then saying, oh, we're not on par. How does Frederick County line up with other regions that are near us?
Great. So this is actually a statewide, it's a national-wide report, but the state that we've got really good information from our state. We actually also have Pennsylvania, the District of Columbia, Virginia. We're almost to West Virginia. We're so close to West Virginia. So we're able to stack up against a variety of counties. In the state of Maryland, we're about dead middle. We have the lowest number of ALICE households is actually in Howard County, followed very closely by Carroll County, which is a surprise. And then the largest concentrations are in the city of Baltimore and our extreme rural communities of Garrett and Allegheny County and Somerset County as well.
Interesting. That's interesting.
We're dead heat with Charles County. We're almost exactly the same. Yep.
That's interesting. And you can break it down and see all of this information in this very detailed report. I started to look at it and realize this is something you have to delve into, but it's really good to have that information for all of these different organizations and United Way to be able to present that. I can see Stephen is up on the screen, which means it's time for us to start getting some Q&A from the viewers tonight. But I just want to say this is important information to know. It's something I just became familiar with, and it's something that I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about. All right, Stephen, what do we have in the chat?
We have a couple of questions. First, I will say, when I navigated to the website myself, I saw a useful map that was color grading that could help you really visually see the differences, and you can click on percentages and then a total number. So please go and check that
Yep,
out. I was
interactive
intrigued.
maps. Yes, yes, indeed. Yep.
So, how does the United Way help the Alice families? Is a question.
Great. So United Way, I'm going to speak. I'm going to speak about internal, and then I'll move to external as well. So internal to United Way, we provide a program called the Prosperity Center, which is really what we're now calling the pathway to financial stability. So this is a program designed to help Alice households. In order to be eligible for the programs, you need to make have income less than what we call the survival budget, the basic cost of living of any. We can calculate any family size, and so long as you make less than that, you qualify for the program. The Pathways to Financial Stability really has two basic functions right now. We have a pathway to home ownership, which is exactly what it is. We provide a number of programs that prepare and allow Alice families to purchase their first home, including a very, very generous match program. But we also provide credit counseling and budget coaching and free income tax assistance to make sure that everybody's getting the income tax refunds that they deserve. And we also have a similar program, but it's the ultimate outcome that we want to see is putting people in cars. So we know that transportation is a major challenge in Frederick County. We're the largest geographical county of the state. And in most jurisdictions in this county, you have to have a car to get around. So we're trying to help our Alice households get a county and then get a car. And then there's how we use it for the rest. So our primary role is to advocate for working families, and we're out talking about working families a lot. And we see it catching fire, and understanding that it's important for people to be able to afford to live in the community in which they want to live.
All right. Well, we have a couple questions that are very similar to one another, so I'll ask them at the same time. How can we help the United Way support the Frederick community, and also are there volunteer opportunities available with United Way?
Yeah, so great question. I'm going to answer the first one because I love that question because, of course, we are a nonprofit organization. We need contributions all the time to be able to support our work and the work of other nonprofits. There's many ways you can give to or through United Way. So historically, a United Way is what we call a pass-through organization. So you can give to United Way and direct us how you want to those funds to be distributed in the county. And of course, we need as much support as we can for the Pathways to Financial Stability of the program. That program is only as viable as the funding we receive to support it. So that's a great question. Volunteerism. We have a full-scale volunteer center at United Way. So if you go to our website at uwfrederick.org, you will see a volunteer site, and we help promote volunteer opportunities throughout the county. We have a day of action every year. It's always the first Friday of October, in which today was the big sweep with the downtown partnership. So you saw lots of volunteers. Our program's in the fall, and very, very similar. We go out to nonprofit organizations and get them ready for the winter.
I did notice a lot of people with brooms around town today, and I thought that's what they must be doing, because you don't see just people walking around with brooms.
Yeah.
So this is really wonderful. Ken, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a small bit of information. I mean, because it's vast about the Alice report, but we can find out more information about it. And I want you to make sure to mention the website again for United Way of Frederick County.
Yes, so it's uwfrederick.org. And I'd like to make a very, very important plug, if I may.
Please.
We need people to get vaccinated. We need people to get vaccinated so we can get the Met and other arts organizations back into business and being the economic drivers that the arts were made to be.
Amen. I agree with you 100%. And I thank you so much for that impassioned last Yeah, that last nugget was perfect. So thank you so much. And we'll make sure that the information is in our chat so that everyone can find out the website for United Way of Frederick County. Thank you so much
Excellent.
again,
Thank you
President
for
and
inviting me.
CEO Ken Oldham.
Thank
Absolutely.
you for inviting
Thank you. All right. So now it's time to try your hand at what you know about Frederick. Stephen, are you ready for some trivia?
Why, yes, I am, Rona. Why don't we get right to it? And
Okay.
we'll see you again later.
All right.
All right, here we go. Audience, it's time to see how much you know about our community as our guests try to trick you with something that doesn't quite fit into this week's theme. You, our virtual audience, will use the poll function that will come up after the stories are told to guess which of our guests this week may not be telling the whole truth. Frederick is home to many historic houses. The first home ever built downtown was erected 276 years ago, right where our friends at Venus on the Half Shell now reside. But lost to time are that original house and many other buildings, such as the Free Colored Men's Library on I Street, the old B&O Rail Depot, which at its time was one of the oldest in the world, and the place where George Washington and Benjamin Franklin met and locked eyes for the very first time. This week we have Amber George, Ray Hatch, and Allison Duvall presenting local stories. Our friends are going to share some facts about 3 historic structures in town that we are lucky to still have today. Test your Frederick knowledge and guess which old building is the youngest. I'll say that again. While listening to these stories, try to narrow down which old building is the youngest for this week's game. Now, first to tell us about the Barbara Fritchie house is Allison.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everyone. So John and Barbara Fritchie were well-known landowners with holdings reaching out past the Golden Mile, but they settled down along West Patrick Street on the banks of Carroll's Creek in their now famous abode. Half was a shop for John's leather glove business, and the other half was their home. Years later came that immortal stanza in John Greenleaf Whittier's poem, "Shoot if you must this old gray head, but spare your country's flag," she said. Those words solidified Barbara Fritchie's place in American folklore, and her home became an instant tourist destination in Frederick. People flocked to see the house where Dame Barbara supposedly waved her Union flag in the face of the passing Confederate army.
Wow. Thanks, Allison. Next up is Amber with a story about the Beatty Kramer house.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everyone. The unassuming Beatty Kramer house sits just past the Ceresville mansion on Liberty Road. The structure is significant not only as a rare example of the building methods used, but also because of the family attached to it. The house was built for local court justice Thomas Beatty Sr. He was one of the first commissioners of the newly formed Frederick County and had influence over its development. And it was under his direction that the county court gave the big old middle finger to the British in their Stamp Act. Some historians believe that this set off a chain of events that eventually led to the American Revolution. If the walls of his home could talk, they would reverberate with the rumblings of early American patriotism. The land where the house sits was passed down from Thomas's mother, Susanna Asford Beatty. She was one of Frederick's earliest settlers, possibly Frederick's first female landowner, and her will is the first recorded in Frederick.
Awesome. Thanks, Amber. And finally, we have Ray telling us about Dr. Bourne's medical office on All Saints Street.
Thank you, Stephen. The community along West All Saints Street served as an important hub for Black citizens of Frederick during the era of segregation. As churches, groceries, barbershops, restaurants, and meeting halls were established there, so was a doctor's office and hospital. The county's first Black doctor, Dr. Ulysses Grant Bourne Sr., set up his practice in a building at the southeast corner of West All Saints and Ice Street. It was here that Dr. Bourne attended to most of his patients in office, but he also hitched up his horse and buggy and made house calls and operated a hospital down the street. Not expecting payment for his services, he often accepted meat and produce as trade. Many local residents still have fond memories of his medical office and their wonderful family physician. And while he didn't build 30 West All Saints Street, it has become an important historical landmark because of him.
All right. Thank you very much, Ray. In just a moment, you will see the poll function pop up where you can choose which guest is telling us the story of the youngest Old Frederick building. You'll be given a brief period of time to cast your vote, and remember, you can use the chat to help each other out. Story 1 will be Allison, Story 2 will be Amber, and Story 3 will be Ray. And I'm launching the poll now.
Guys, I tell you right now, this is very, very serious. Think about this. Think about the Great Migration. Now, Black people didn't have a whole lot, and we were the last people to get things. So probably our structure would be the newest one around. And if that's not enough for you, my kids live on All Saints. So vote for that. Vote for Dr. Bourne. He's the one. Come on now. Let me hear you talking. Come on. What's in the chat? Talk to me.
I mean, I don't know when Frederick was founded, but maybe not that long ago. I don't know. Ray's got a good point.
Yeah, All Saints is a pretty hip street. It really is. I like it. Vote for it just because of that. And it's in Frederick. It's awesome.
There's Barbara Fritchie pantyhose. Come on.
We don't even know if Barbara Fritchie was a real person.
Wow. She does sound like somebody made up, doesn't she?
Oh, shots fired. I'll be closing the poll soon. Remember, you can use the chat to help each other out, and votes are anonymous, so don't be shy.
Yeah, who really was Barbara Fritchie?
She's got a great name.
I mean, you can't throw a rock without hitting something with their name on it.
I guess that's more like Fitzgerald. Frederick. Barbara Fitzgerald.
Barbara Fitzgerald Fritchie.
Yeah. Barbara Monacacy.
Just one more moment for the voting. There's a handful of people that still can cast a vote. We are lucky to live in a community with unique architecture that spans the centuries, and they all have a tale to tell.
Look at that beautiful building.
All right, I am going to end this polling, and it looks like story number 3 was what the audience chose. So I see Ray is celebrating. Congratulations for getting the most votes on the youngest building, Ray. But the youngest of the old houses is the Barbara Fritchie house. Allison, could you tell us more about that?
That's correct. This was kind of a trick question. The building we see today was built in 1927. It's a smaller reproduction in a slightly different location. The original home was built in 1806, but had to be demolished when Carroll Creek had a major flood after Barbara's death. It tends to do that. The site stood vacant after the creek was widened, then a plumbing business set up shop. Visitors to tourists to Frederick would leave disappointed that the star of Whittier's poem was nowhere to be found. So in the 1920s, the Barbara Fritchie Society purchased the land back and had the present building constructed as a museum. But little did those disappointed travelers know that right up the block lived Mary Quantrell, a woman who actually did face down Lee's army with her Union flag.
Wow.
But that's another story. Built before the Fritchie reproduction was Ray, 30 West All Saints Street. Dr. Bourne lived and practiced medicine here from 1903 to 1953. The home was originally built in 1860, as were many of the townhouses on All Saints Street. And built even earlier was the Beatty Kramer house. Wood samples from the home date the original portion back to 1748. It's believed that this is the oldest standing home in Frederick County.
Wow.
Wow, thank you so much for all that wonderful information, Allison. And thank you to all of our guests for sharing with us tonight. Next, in our ensemble spotlight, you'll see Ray Hatch again on his journeys out and about Frederick. So, please enjoy Walking with Ray.
Hello, my name is Ray Hatch, and I am an out and proud member of Maryland Ensemble Theater. I started walking every day in June in answer, to the pandemic. I was looking for some kind of power over my own being, The gyms closed down and, the pandemic became real for my husband and I on the day of our third wedding anniversary in March. And we had just had our dinner at our favorite restaurant, Sumitra on Patrick Street. And then I walked up one block to rehearsal at the Met for Angels in America, where we were informed that our theater was going dark because of the pandemic. And so that was March of 2020. And so here we are now in April of 2021.
Walking centers me, it focuses me, and it also feels great. It gives me a great sense of accomplishment. I also lovingly and respectfully dismiss all negative thoughts about anything, about myself, about the surroundings, about other people. I allow nothing but positive thoughts and self-talk when I walk. When I first began walking, I was doing about just under 3 miles in about maybe 6,300 steps. And then after doing that for about a week or two, and I started walking every day, I started challenging myself to walk a little bit more each day. And next thing I knew, I was up to, I think I've walked up to 13 miles.
Good evening. I'm Jeremy Myers, a company member with Met. Tonight we are joined by my friends and Met colleagues Reiner Puchaska and Allison Duvall. This segment, Historic Frederick, focuses on our community's past and highlights community members who will share some of Frederick's heritage. Hello, Allison and Reiner. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Hey, Jeremy.
Well, in tonight's segment, we are discussing Frederick's German heritage and taking a look at some of the unique qualities of the Schifferstadt Architectural Museum. Now, Reiner, I'm excited for the opportunity to hear your perspective because you are originally from Germany. Can you tell me, as an immigrant and artist living in Frederick, Maryland, what the region's heritage means to you and if that had an impact in your decision to settle here?
Absolutely. As a German immigrant, I have always felt at home here in Frederick. Maryland and Frederick in particular have a strong German cultural influence. We have 2 Oktoberfest events just here in Frederick. Statistically, in Maryland, almost 13% of the population self-reports as having German ancestry. Part of the reason is that in the 18th century, primarily between 1725 and 1775, just leading up to the Revolutionary War, a large number of Germans came to Maryland through Pennsylvania.
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and many people are familiar with the Pennsylvania Dutch region and culture. But can you tell us about what factors contributed the continued German migration from PA and down into Maryland?
Absolutely. So a lot of immigrants who came to America arrived in Philadelphia, and that's where they completed their 7-year service as indentured servants on farms in Pennsylvania. But as land became increasingly scarcer, a lot of people settled and land was kind of taken up. A lot of the Germans sort of started migrating along the Monocacy Trail west into Maryland, where large tracts of land were available at a very affordable price. Indentured servitude allowed immigrants in Pennsylvania to hold on to their savings, so it was not a bad thing. It was 7 years was a long time, but rather than spend that money on their passage, they could hold on to those savings, work off their passage, and frequently it was also their opportunity to learn English during those 7 years before they started moving on.
Very interesting. Reiner, what inspired you to start doing research on 18th century German migration to America?
So originally in 2014, I began researching German immigration into Maryland when I wrote A Revolutionary Christmas, which premiered on the Met stage that December. At the time, Patricia Ogden, who was on the board of the Landmarks Foundation, shared much of her meticulous research. She's sort of our local expert on the Brunner family. So her research on the historical Brunners helped me with the creation of the fictional Kober family. And then in 2017, the Schifferstadt Architectural Museum, which Allison will tell you much more about in a few minutes, which is one of the oldest houses in Frederick County, was designated a national landmark, which was a big thing, of course. So at the time, the Landmarks Foundation asked me to write and perform a presentation as Joseph Brunner at the public celebration, which was a really cool thing. And then last year with the pandemic and everything, they came back to me and said, would you mind producing a video, performing Joseph in the video again? And then they used it as their contribution to the Museums by Candlelight tour, which was virtual, unfortunately, last December. So for anyone who's interested in watching the whole video, it's on their website, fredericklandmarks.org. Just scroll down to the bottom, either click on the picture or the link, and you can watch the whole video. So through all that research, I became pretty familiar with the Brunners. They were one of the first families who migrated from Pennsylvania to Maryland in 1736. So we don't have a whole lot of documentation, but they were there for 7 years. So doing the math, we can kind of assume that they did the indentured servitude thing. Just as a reference, Frederick Town, which is what Frederick used to be called, was not founded until 1745. And then Frederick County became its own county in 1748 when it split off from Prince George's County. So the earliest Monocacy settlement records that we have today sort of dates that between 1721 and 1732. The inhabitants were mostly European American traders who operated a trading post for people sort of migrating west and coexisted peacefully with the local Native American tribes.
So tell us, what was life like in Germany for the Brunners, and what inspired them to emigrate to America?
So the Brunners, like many of the German immigrants coming from the Rhineland-Palatinate, escaped economic and to some extent religious challenges. So Joseph Brunner settled in Klein-Schifferstadt in the Palatinate with his family when he was a young boy. So after the 30-Year War, which ended in 1648, religiously diverse immigration from all over Europe into the Palatinate was encouraged. A lot of people had died. Towns, farms, villages were devastated, so they needed people to rebuild all that. So that's when it started sort of thriving. But then by 1689, the French began occupying and destroying the Palatinate again. Louis XIV wanted a 100-kilometer wide buffer of no man's land on France's eastern borders. So his army, his generals, did a pretty thorough job of devastating the Palatinate during that time. So when Joseph was 13, his father died, so his mother sent him to live with his father's relatives in the Odenwald for 9 years. He was in Frankisch Krumbach. There he learned about farming, reading and writing, so he was certainly literate, and about the lower courts. So he learned about the court system. And on his 21st birthday in 1700, his mother brought him home to Klein-Schifferstadt. So he met his wife, Katharina, that year. Just as an aside, in the video that we produced, Jenny Russell, who is with us tonight, plays my wife, Katharina, and Jenny is a Brunner descendant. So it was really exciting to get someone who is descended from the original Brunners.
That
to
is
play
exciting.
Katarina Brunner in our video. So they were married the next year. Their daughter, Anna Barbara, was born in 1702. She was the first of 8 children, 6 of whom survived to adulthood. The Brunners raised their family in the Reformed faith. Joseph was a very prominent member of their community. He was a member of the court. Again, he had that legal background, and he was the elder in their church. But then over the next 25 years, they faced more French attacks, horribly harsh winters that destroyed people's livelihoods, and really strong efforts to make the region Catholic again. So finally, in 1727, his oldest sons convince him it is time to leave, to give all this up, the roots, and to immigrate to America. So his oldest son, Jacob, immigrates in 1728 with his family. So they wanted to go first, kind of get the lay of the land, learn about the area a little bit, and then bring the entire family over. So by the following year in 1729, Joseph had to spend 1/3 of his assets on the family's manumission. So back then, if people wanted to emigrate, they had to pay a huge sum of money to be able to leave.
Wow.
So on April 12th, the family left. At this point, Joseph was 50 years old.
I have to imagine that in those days, the journey had to have been quite long and dangerous. Can you tell us a little bit about what that would have been like?
Oh, it was certainly long, and it was very definitely dangerous. So the journey on the Rhine from Heilbronn to Rotterdam took 6 weeks. So back then there was not a unified Germany, so it was all these little principalities and duchies. So they passed 36 customs houses, and at each of them, the ship had to be inspected and taxes paid and tolls paid. Then they had to wait 6 weeks in Rotterdam. The first leg of their sea passage from Rotterdam, where they embarked on July 7th of that year, to the Isle of Wight, took 3 weeks. But then the most brutal part of the journey was the 12-week journey to Philadelphia. And that was certainly fraught with danger between storms, sickness, dozens of people dying, many of them mothers after giving birth and their babies. And they were just kind of tossed overboard. So finally, the Brunners arrived in Philadelphia on September 11th, 5 months after the departure from Kleinschifferstadt.
Wow.
So upon arrival, all the men on the ship 16 and older were marched to the courthouse, where they had to swear an oath of allegiance to King George II, and another to prove that they weren't Catholics, which the Brunners did not mind doing. So then we have to assume, based on the time they spent there, that they committed to that 7-year term of indentured servitude before moving on to Maryland.
Gotcha. So when did the family arrive in Maryland?
So the Brunners arrived in Maryland in May of 1736 in the Monocacy River Valley, which again, back then was the western frontier. There wasn't much here. Joseph and his oldest son settled on almost 1,000 acres of land near the Carroll Creek. They worked very hard cultivating that leased land for 10 years. Then in 1745, Daniel Delaney, and quick aside here, Jesse, our ASL interpreter, is a direct descendant of Daniel Delaney.
It's wonderful.
So Mr. Delaney bought a large tract of land from Benjamin Tasker in Annapolis. He named the land Tasker's Chance. And one of the provisions of the sale stipulated that the land had to be sold to farmers who were already settled on it at a lower price because they had spent all these years working so hard developing it. So that was only fair. So the following year, Joseph and 3 of his oldest sons bought over 900 acres of farmland.
Wow.
So as far as we know, in 1753, Joseph sold his land to his youngest son, Elias, who, as far as we know, built the house that Allison will now tell you about in 1758.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Reiner. And it is a beautiful house, and it just sits just west of Baker Park before you get to I-15. Allison, can you walk us through some of the home's history?
Sure. So Like you said, the home is at the end of Baker Park. It's about a 1.5 mile walk from downtown through beautiful Baker Park. The Bruners, when they settled on the land that Reiner talked about, Carroll Creek was a little closer to the house than it is today. So they settled along the waterway, which was common for settlers back then. And most likely, Joseph Bruner built a log or timber frame dwelling on the land and several outbuildings to support his farm, which was, again, typical of the time. When a settler would arrive to a new place, they had priorities. There was a rush to get a roof over their head.
Sure.
They needed to plant crops, buy livestock, and create some source of income. And once that was complete and they felt settled in that, then they could shift focus to building a more permanent home, which was often built adjacent to or attached to the home they were living in, which is exactly what the Bruners did.
Interesting.
They were here, if you think about it, they were here before there was a Frederick. There was no Frederick town, no Frederick County. At the same year they got the deed to the land, they would have looked across the fields and the ponds between them and downtown and seen buildings popping up. They would have seen that first house built for Thomas Schley, the first church, which was Trinity Chapel on West Church Street, still there. They would have seen mills and homes and industries. And the city just grew right before their eyes. And as Reiner said, Joseph sold the son to his son Elias, and Elias built the house in 1758. And the house was quite massive for the time, which indicated that the Bruners probably had some wealth. So yeah, it's amazing that it still
really
stands.
Yeah, it is. It's quite lovely. What are some of the interesting architectural features of the house and garden that stand out to you?
Well, for architectural historians, the building is incredibly interesting. It's called an architectural museum in part because when Landmarks bought the building, they did some investigating. And when you are inside the building, and I hope everyone comes when the building reopens and goes on a tour with our amazing docents. And because some of the lath and plaster is removed, or some parts of the house have been kind of pulled away so you could see the original way it was built. It's a really amazing example of early German-American domestic architecture, and it's one of the finest in the country. So there's the 1758 stone house, which everyone is familiar with, and then an 1866 brick addition off the side. And then there's the Heritage Garden, which was built in the 1980s, but it's a typical vegetable, herb, flower garden that's maintained by our master gardener, Mary Beth, who is also a Bruner descendant, which is amazing. And when Landmarks acquired Schifferstadt, there was consideration to remove that addition off the side, which is a common predicament for preservationists. Do you take something back to its original state and interpret it that way? Or do you leave it and interpret it as it is through its growth through time? And in the case of Schifferstadt, I personally like that they left the addition there because the docents can interpret the way that people lived in the house and added to it and changed it in relation to how Frederick was growing and changing around them. And it adds context to the house, especially because the outbuildings, including a large barn that is now like would have been across the street where the Church of the Brethren parking lot is, before 2nd Street was even there. You know, all those outbuildings are gone. So we're very lucky to have the whole house intact as it is. And there's a couple items inside the house which are really amazing. So again, please come on a tour. There's a 5-plate stove on the 2nd floor that is the only one in the United States in its original position, which is amazing. There's also built-in cabinetry that's original hardware. The kitchen has a fireplace that's almost big enough to walk into, and Landmarks holds cooking demonstrations in the fireplace for some of the events. And it's just a really, really beautiful home.
It really is. And now, Allison, you served on the board of the Frederick County Landmarks Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization and some of its preservation efforts?
Sure. So Frederick County Landmarks Foundation is a private nonprofit organization which promotes the preservation of historic sites, structures, landmarks, and communities in Frederick County. Next year marks 50 years for Frederick County Landmarks Foundation. It was founded by 4 women, Birch Coates, Fritzie Kelly, Maggie Klein, and Ann Leberts. And just to note, Ann Leberts went on to also found the Tourism Council of Frederick County and the Children's Museum at Rose Hill Manor. So these women were really, really dedicated to keeping the history of Frederick alive, and they put a lot of time and energy into saving the building that we have today. In 1974, there was an immediate threat of demolition for Schifferstadt. So the whole community rallied around this home. There were Save the House festivals. You could sponsor a shingle for the roof. There was a secondhand store that opened up on Market Street to bring in a little income. And the Frederick County Visitors Information Center rented out space in the addition, another source of income for a brief time. And 47 years later, it's been lovingly restored, maintained, and operates as a museum. And
That's incredible. And
yeah,
we're grateful to still have it here with us. What other programs does the foundation help to run?
So Landmarks also owns the Beatty Kramer House, which Amber talked about in the trivia section. That is undergoing exciting preservation efforts right now. Also the Zion Church and Cemetery, which is in Urbana, right off 270. That was the first church in the Sugarloaf Mountain area, and it's another amazing preservation success story. Also, Landmarks has, in a normal year, there's year-round events, tours, like there's the Barnstormers event, which is happening this year. There's normally an Oktoberfest, which is the oldest Oktoberfest in Frederick. So definitely check out the Landmarks website. There's information on the plaques program, which for any historic house owner, definitely want to check that out. And Landmarks is always looking for volunteers. Landmarks is not part of the county or the city. It's not funded by the county or the city. So it runs entirely on individual donations, bequests, tour and event profits. And really the heart and soul of the foundation are the volunteers and the docents. So definitely get involved if that's something that you're interested in.
Great.
Yeah. And I just wanted to mention, there are other lots of groups around Frederick that is working to save Frederick's past. It's not just Landmarks, and it's not just buildings. For example, I was thinking of a story in the late 1800s, a woman named Marie Deal, she started Frederick's chapter of the SPCA, which is now the Humane Society of Frederick County. And the SPCA in 1911 erected a monument to her. It was a beautiful fountain at the corner of Court and Church Streets. And at the top was a Greek goddess in honor of Marie, a statue. And at the base, it was a drinking fountain for humans, dogs, cats, and horses. Eventually, this fountain deteriorated and the statue fell and shattered on the sidewalk and was tucked away in a building downtown. But someone found that statue. They had it lovingly restored, and now that amazing statue sits in the garden of the Steiner House, which is another lovely historic house home in Frederick. It's also the headquarters for the Frederick Women's Civic Club. And you know, Stephen Steiner, who built the home, was a Brunner descendant. So there's another connection there. And not to be too anti-tech right here, but I think we're all familiar with this fountain along Carroll Creek. I don't know if you can see that. This fountain is kind of a monument to the monument of Marie Deal. It's a fountain for humans and dogs. And there's an image of that original fountain on the vertical part of that new fountain. So
cool.
It's just neat to think about Frederick, and you know, we see echoes of this fountain downtown now with the water bowls out for dogs in front of businesses. And the thing I love about Frederick is just how connected everything is, and we're so lucky that we had people save these pieces from the past that we can still appreciate today.
Yes, indeed. Those are important efforts, and I'm really grateful that you could share some of those with us. I see that Stephen has popped back up. So I think we have time for a couple questions from the audience. So Stephen, what do you have for us?
Yes, we do have some questions in the audience. I just was thinking about I'm missing my opportunity to drink water with cats, dogs, and horses. So, first question, what was the Monocacy Trail?
A Monocacy Trail was the colonial/Indian Route 15. Basically, it was a trail that led from Pennsylvania into Maryland along the Monocacy, which is very similar to what Route 15 is today.
Oh, Route 15. I know that. And another question, do we know how many of the immigrants who came over in the mid-18th century were indentured servants?
The overall estimates for indentured servitude are somewhere between half of immigrants to 2/3 of them. So a significant number of people.
Yes, I would agree. That's a large fraction. And then this question might be more for Allie. Is Schifferstadt haunted? It's a question.
Good question.
It might be, but that's not the reason to visit Schifferstadt. There's a lot of cool things about it.
Visit in the daytime is your recommendation?
Yeah, it's I can't confirm or deny.
Well put. And that wraps up our questions here.
Well, thank you, Stephen, and Reiner and Allison. Thank you both so much for joining us. I learned a lot tonight. And if you're interested in learning more about these topics and places, please check out all the great resources that we have listed in the chat. Next, we have a video created by the students of Frederick's Academy of the Fine Arts and the Delaplane Arts Center.
Wow. That was the students of FCPS Academy of Fine Arts, and it is just great to see that creativity. It's great to see you can't stop art. Even a pandemic's not going to stop the art. You know what I mean? And these are the up and coming artists in our midst, and it's really wonderful to see them. Well, thank you. This is about to wrap it up time. Thank you for all of our guests. Thank you to everyone. Yvonne, Ivan, and Rosanna Diaz for coming in and chatting. Ken Oldham from the United Way of Frederick County. Our company members, Ray, Amber, Reiner, and Allison. Such a wealth of knowledge. All of you, you did a great job with the trivia and the other segments. And once again, to our other co-hosts this evening, I'd like to say thank you to Victoria Oliar and Jesse Lewis. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you next week for week 3 of Loving Frederick. It's going to be great. Make sure you check out all the links in the chat. Good night. See you next week.